what I'm about to present is a vision our council has talked about. We prayed about it. We met kaninang umaga to share it, and we united behind it. So it's something we want to cascade to you to provide some handles and clarity as we move forward together as a church. So Brother Fitz, can you give me hosting access? I mean, share screen access.
Sure. 1 minute. I guess, Pastor Z, maybe we can take a quick break.
Okay.
2 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes. Yeah,
Sure.
is that okay?
Yes.
Sige,
5 minute break. 5 minute break.
Yeah, let's do a 5-minute break. So my time is 3:17. Let's get back here at around 3:23, so we can hear the vision. Thank you, guys.
Thank you po.
Okay. We have everyone back na ba? Or we need more time? Okay, I'm seeing hands.
I'm ready.
All right. Yeah. Go ahead, Pastor Z. Take it away.
Okay, so what I'm sharing is a shared vision and directive for our ministries. This hopefully we can inspire you, encourage you, and help drive the ministries with you this next quarter of the year. So I'm calling this the Heroes Church Directive. Siguro I'll invite you guys to chime in muna. If you can describe your dream ministry in one word, what would it be? Can I get some answers? I guess you can just unmute and answer or put it in the chat group. You can describe your dream ministry in one word.
Maybe let me try, Pastor Z. Siguro ako, I would say resilient, in a sense na regardless of the situation or of challenges, continuous yung ministry na helping the church. I guess that's it, resilient.
That's good. That's good. How about the others? Fruitful. Okay. Maybe 2 to 3 more answers. Collaborative or collaboration. That's great. Enjoyable and fun, multicultural. Awesome. Awesome answers. So I'm glad you have I'm glad you have a wish. You know, maganda you all have a wish of what you see as a dream ministry, how you describe it. So tayo din as a church, we also want to share with you, describe for you the ministry vision we have. And hopefully it can already include yung mga answers nyo. Okay, let's see. Now, most of us, the reality is, as human beings, most of us fall under the tendency to move towards these indicators of success. Okay, so because we're human beings and we, most of us, if not all of us, are professionals, very driven, and we want to be the best in our craft. We tend to associate and bring into the church this sort of success indicators. So these are probably words that we use in our professional life, in our corporate jobs, that are very attractive for corporate growth. Exciting, excellent, explosive, experimental. So the reality is a lot of churches, and maybe you can argue in terms of using these words, some successful churches use these words a lot. So a lot of probably successful churches in terms of size, they're very exciting. They have a lot of ministry programs. They have a lot of personalities, a lot of celebrities. So syempre, it's exciting to go there. There's a lot of attractions. Some churches are also very excellent. Some are some really challenge people to, you know, be excellent. And there is the focus on being excellent for God, being excellent for His service. So sa Roman Catholic tradition, ang mga gumagawa nito is the Opus Dei. They believe in, being excellent in their work. Sometimes the church, this is also being applied. So a lot of corporate principles are being used by churches, and they don't necessarily see na it's a bad thing. And we're also not saying it's a bad thing. We're just saying that we are aware that these philosophies exist. And third is, some churches want to be explosive. They want to really grow massively by the numbers. It's a numbers game. They want to check on you if you are evangelizing and leading others. So that's another model of church. And we also see that around us. And of course, one last E is experimental. Some churches are experimenting. They want to try new things. So some churches meet in bars. Some churches meet in clubs. There are some churches experimenting on the house church experience, parang migrating the church to every family. So there's all these different experiments. Now, I'm not saying these philosophies are wrong, but where we are as a church, this 2021, siguro let's be free from these words muna. If ito yung mga tendency natin, let's relax them muna and let's experience freedom muna from these excess. Kasi some of these excess can be excesses to the church. That many times, the sad reality is, pwedeng lahat yan are present in the church. It's an exciting church. It's an excellent church. It's an explosive church. It's an experimental church. But it's also absent of the main thing that the church should be. So again, we're not saying forget about these words or they're wrong. We're just saying let's set them aside muna because they might not be our priorities. So if you ask me, what will be our priorities? Well, we have to go back to our vision. And what is our vision? Our vision is to build Christ-centered communities of imperfect people for the city. This was the vision God gave us. This is the vision we talk about during membership class. A lot of times our lighthouse guide is formed with this template. Our preaching calendar is also revolving. We can discuss different aspects of this together. But this is our vision. So because this is our vision, it has to connect with all the things that we do, especially our ministry. Now, I'm so happy with our church council because we are all united under this vision. We want to develop this vision to spread out in our ministry's capacity. Now, let us describe for you what that means. So, number one, let's go to our first value, a Christ-centered church. So if you are here because you are a ministry leader or a ministry servant or a ministry team member, or kahit na baka nasali ka lang dito, hindi mo alam bakit ka na sa meeting na to, but you want to be involved in ministry, one thing you really want to ask is, what culture are you setting in your ministry? Again, tayo yung magsiset nun eh. As the leader, kayo yung magsiset. As the ministry team member, those who will be served in your ministry will really be shaped by the culture you form. So again, you need to be able to define the culture that you want, because as a leader, you will create a culture that you will lead people to. Diba? Kasi kung wala kang definition of the culture you want, ang tendency, baka may member ka or baka may mga taong dadating sa ministry, sila yung magdidictate kung ano yung ministry. So, hindi ikaw yung nagli-lead, sila. Pero ang good news is we have a directive for what kind of ministry we want and what kind of culture we want. And that is still key to our vision. We want to build a Christ-centered culture. And we have to look at Christ on what that culture means. And here are 3 descriptions of this culture that we really want to share with you. Number 1, we want to develop a humble culture of ministry. What do we mean by that? It means we want to prioritize a heart to serve versus moralistic attitude. Kasi minsan, sad to say, dahil we're fallen creatures, ministry could be very competitive, ministry could be very results-oriented, ministry could be very numbers-driven. Now again, that is one philosophy of ministry. But it is not something we want to develop. What we want as a Christ-centered church, if we really say we're a Christ-centered church, is a humble ministry. Above all things, we want you to serve in our church because you have the heart to serve. Hindi yung wala kaming ambition to be successful, wala tayong ambition na maging sikat na church, or wala tayong ambition na maging sikat na tagalingkod ng Diyos. Alisin na natin yon. Right now pa lang, as we are, a humble, small community church, let's develop our strength. And our strength is a heart to serve. It's very humble, like Jesus. Number 2, and ako, I'm happy with the reports kasi testimony yan dito sa second description. We are an initiating culture. We have an initiating culture. Meaning, we're not passively waiting for directions from the top. Diba? Maraming churches ganun eh. The directions, the instructions, the ministries are driven from the top down. So kung ano yung sabihin ng pastor, lahat susunod. Kung anong papagawa ng pastor, yun yung gagawin. I'm so happy na we can develop a culture where people can take initiative. Who are the people? Well, of course, we have ground rules. We want our members to be initiators of ministries. Kaya actually, Fritz asked me this week, sino pa ba yung mga pwedeng ma-invite sa chat group na wala? And to be honest, marami pa sanang pwede. I can think of at least 5 to 10 more people na maybe I'm sure they can deliver something to our ministries. Pero hindi ko pa sila sinama kasi they haven't gone through the membership class, they haven't gone through our membership dialogues, and we really want to get that commitment from them as a bona fide member to be able to really take this next level. So, but with that said, if you're a member of the church and you're part of our worship service, you're going to our lighthouses, then we really want you to step up and be and contribute. And that's a testimony to what Jesus Christ did. He's not waiting. He didn't wait. He just obeyed. He showed up. He came down here to earth. He took the form of a man. He did what he had to do. So, merong mga churches na very active, very driven from the top down. Pero meron ding mga churches na very passive. Yung mga spectators na lang yung mga miyembro. Gusto lang nila umattend ng simbahan, umuwi. Gusto lang nila, alam nilang napapag-pray sila, umuwi. That's also not the culture we want. We don't want a corporate-driven culture. We also don't want a a lackadaisical passive culture. We want an initiating culture to serve with a humble heart. And lastly, what that looks like is it might be slower. The process that we're taking might be slow, but it is definitely sure. For us, we really want to develop, and ako as your pastor, I want you to start remembering this phrase. Slow is fast. For us, slow is fast. We're not trying to speed things up. We're not trying to rush into things. We really want to develop the right values. We really want to inspire the right perspectives. We really want to create long-term sustainable ministry directives so that it can be long-lasting. Kasi lumaki ako sa church eh. Ang dami ko na nakita na bibo, ang dami ko na nakita na very talented people na nagamit sa church, ginusto naman nila. Pero kasi dahil wala yung tamang perspective, wala yung tamang support, nababurnt out. And dahil nababurnt out sa ministry, umaalis na lang. Dahil umaalis sa ministry, dahil disillusion sa Christianity. So ayaw natin yon. We want to have a Christ-centered culture na people understand what ministry is about. People know what we're doing it for. And kahit mabagal siya, people recognize, the growth is really according to God. Eh. So we just have to do our part. We have to be patient. God is the giver of the growth. And that part of that is a patient and encouraging posture. So I'm not here, the council is not here to be slave drivers or to be lords or mga boss. Hindi kami mga boss. We want to develop na as a church, we are here to serve. And sometimes serving, hindi yun na pwede madaliin eh. It takes time. People take, malaramdaman ng tao eh pag minamadali mo sila. Pero, when you give people the time, people give you give them the attention, give them the space to grow, then surely, by God's grace, with feeding of the gospel, people will grow. So I think these are the principles I'm sharing to you. We've survived the pandemic. We've grown as a church because we stick with this philosophy. We're not a corporate-centered church. We're not a purpose-driven church. We're a Christ-centered church. So I wanted to share that with you. Second, second value is we're a community-based church. So connected to the ministry, the question I want to ask you is, have you experienced loneliness in ministry? If you have, then you understand what I'm saying. A solo flighting hero is an endangered hero. Kapag mag-isa ka lang sa ministry, kapag feeling mo ikaw lang gumagawa, pag feeling mo wala kang katulong, wala kang katuwang, pag feeling mo mag-isa ka, delikado yun. Either mas mahirap mag-succeed, or mas madali ka mag-give up, or mas malaki yung chance na papale yung ministry. Kasi hindi designed for ministry to be done by yourself. And that's why, as a church, to be true to the community-based value that we have, we want to develop a team culture, not a superstar culture. It's one of the things that I've seen happen in churches. Maraming churches, may mga superstars. May mga superstars sila. It could be the pastor. It could be the worship leader. It could be, a celebrity, or it could be a businessman donor. Diba? Totoo yan eh. Marami talagang mga pwedeng sumikat or talagang maging mga individuals na reasons why a church can be successful. which is not wrong. Sometimes God uses amazing individuals for His glory. But what happens is, when you have a superstar, the tendency is, nanonood na lang yung iba. When you have a superstar, the tendency is, um, parang hindi nakikilos yung iba. And ayaw natin yon. Let's not develop a superstar culture or a one-man team culture. Let's develop a together culture, a team culture, where it doesn't matter who, hindi kailangan mag-give ng credit yung mga names natin. Di ba? Parang ako, I would never dream to have, my name in a website na zurielbernardino.com. Pero madaming ministries ganun di ba? Like lately, we had the big scandal with Ravi Zacharias ministries, di ba? International ministries. A lot of Christian ministers who get successful, who get featured, and because of their amazing talents, sila yung nagiging face of ministry. And lumalaki yung ministry because of that, because there's a face. But again, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of culture are we building? And a celebrity superstar minister culture, that's not for us. That's not what we want. That's not what I want. What we want is to develop a team culture, a community culture. Everyone's serving one another. Everyone's involved. Everyone has a part. Everyone has a role. And you're here because it's like that. You are here in this meeting kasi at one point you gave something to the church, or you're here because at one point the church gave something to you. You recognize that because that's kind of the culture we want to develop. It's not only Pastor Z doing everything. That's not what we want. That's not what I want. That's not sustainable. Diba? We want, I'm just one of you. I'm just one of you. I'm also a member of the church. I have my own strengths. I have my own weaknesses. I will contribute what I can. In the same way, that also means you are there. You have your strengths. You have your weaknesses. You will also contribute what you can. So we're all equals here. There's no special treatment. We don't want to give special treatment or special seats to people. That's not what we're about. And I think we need to remind ourselves, we need to be reminded that this is the kind of culture we want. And it's serving together the Lord and His name talaga yung dapat maitaas. So that's the second value. And the third is we have a city-focused value in our vision. So we also need to ask ourselves, how are we impacting the world outside the church? Ngayon, maraming ways to sagutin yan. Maraming churches din involved na in social justice, impacting, the poor, and that's great. We're not saying we're not doing that. In fact, we're doing that. Meron nga tayong long-term project na dapat tapos na, but we never let it go, which is, dapat disaster response lang siya. Eventually, it became planting a church. Because we believe, the reason why we planted the church in Tacloban, kasi we believe that the church's number one mission is not to give relief. The church's number one mission is to point people to Jesus. So we need, when we made that stand, some of the leaders, they know this, some of you know this, but di ba we had a partner to do disaster relief work in Tacloban. And that was great because syempre malaki yung disaster all over the world, global yung reach niya. Maraming perang pumasok talaga. So we were blessed kasi we were able to be funded initially a lot by Mission to the World, who supported, the ministry there, building the community center, that primarily yung we didn't have to support their missionary, their construction worker. There was a lot of money who came in to build that church when it was a community center. But when we decided that we're gonna plant a church, and we're gonna form a long-term sustainability rehabilitative center there that's gonna be run for the local people and hopefully by a local pastor. When we innovated to do it, to say it like that, nawala yung funding eh. In fact, siguro 80% of the funds that were promised to us were suddenly taken away. And and that's why, it was tough. It was a tough time for us, but it's not as tough when you know your identity. So it was very easy for us to decide na this is the vision that we have because this is what God gave us. It doesn't matter if suddenly 80% of the promised funds disappeared because we don't need the 80% to buy blankets anyway. We just need, some money, some ministry directives to guide, a church there. So it was hard sa simula. We were funding the ministry there almost the same way we're funding uh, our ministry here, but we were able to do that sacrifice, and that sacrifice has paid off. Now we have a local pastor, someone who speaks their language, whose family moved into the church, who's able to serve there. So that's what we prayed for, and God has given that to us. And that's because we recognize that our number one mission as a church is to point people to Jesus. And that is why when we think of our ministry, when you think of your ministries, I'm so happy na narinig ko at first, members lang ng church uma-attend, then eventually more friends attend the ministries sa Sunday school. Kasi that's what we want. We need to pray for our friends. We need to pray for our families. We need to be a light and example of repentance from idols to them. And in fact, if you serve in a church, if you are active in a church, if people know na you're giving Saturdays to the church, giving Sundays to the church, giving your lighthouse schedule to the church, ang laking bagay nun eh. Because people don't do that, di ba? Your non-Christian friends, your non-Christian family, they're not spending time to serve. They're probably spending time, on the internet, on Facebook, on social media, on Mobile Legends, di ba? Or watching their favorite dramas. But that's what's happening. But when they see and they hear that you are committed to a church, you are serving God, you are being a light. And by being a light, you are modeling that there are more important things in this life than just the physical world, the material world, our hobbies, our leisure. Most important thing in our lives is our relationship with Jesus. So we need to be able, just by serving, just by being active in ministry, you're already communicating that. How much more when the ministry always prays for other people? So I think that's the last thing I want to share. I really want all our ministries, and I'm speaking to all of you, especially if you're a ministry head, please, please do not neglect prayer in your ministry. I'd rather have more prayer than programs. But if we are planning programs pero wala tayong prayer, it's it's gonna be a disaster. Okay? It's gonna be a disaster. And I'm not saying the ministry will fail. I'm saying the programs might distract us from the main thing. Kaya, kaya I'm so happy, like sinare ko kanina sa Heroes Dad Buds, ang laking bagay na we spend, half of the meeting praying for each other. And I hope we can develop that. I'm happy to hear now we're teaching our kids to pray, and I think I've experienced some of the lighthouses. And we're beginning to open the floor for people to pray for one another rather than my closing prayer leader lang. This is really important. I really pray that, if wala, Syempre, ang idea, we can have a prayer ministry. Diba? Maybe someone can be tapped to really start a prayer ministry for us. But if wala pa, then as ministry leaders, please involve prayer in your ministries. So that is going to be a very important value as a city-focused, city-loving church. Now, to summarize, as Brother Fritz shared, part of ministry is really recognizing who we are. And that's simply what I shared with you. As far as the leaders are concerned, as far as our vision is concerned, we want to do ministry based on our identity. Okay? We have an identity as a church. We're not trying to copy other churches. We're not going with the flow. We're not trying to follow ano ba yung trending or ano lang or hindi lang tayo nakikiuso. We want to do ministry based on our identity. And to summarize, these are the three ministry-based identity perspectives that we have. Number one, we are forming a Christ-centered culture. That is not a corporate culture. We want to make that very clear. We're not trying to go halfway. We're not trying to mix it up. We're not trying to, hide behind success as a strategy to honor God. We're really saying, no, we're a Christ-centered culture. What that means for us is it's not a corporate culture. Number two, we have a team ministry ethos, not a superstar, kanya-kanya. That's why I was happy na last year si Brother Jason took the liturgy, the mantle to handle the liturgy. He stepped up. There was 1 month he did he was liturgist all month. And then that was the time I also spent a lot of time with him to walk through the liturgy, train him, ganyan. Pero look at what he said kanina. Nung narinig niya, nung nalaman niya na si Brother Wash wanted to join the liturgist, finally he did. He was so happy, di ba? He's happy because that is a sign that we're not trying to be superstars. We want to share the ministry. We want to encourage. We want more people on the team. And that's what we want to continually develop. And lastly, we want to emphasize prayer and faith versus neglecting the main thing. Let's not be distracted by programs, although let's plan for it. Let's not, be distracted by results, although it's good to want it. Let's prioritize and emphasize prayer and faith because that is what's gonna separate us from from other things. We have to be the church, and being a church is a community that prays and moves by faith. So as I end, I want to challenge you in behalf of the Heroes Serves Council, your board of elders and deacons. We want you, we need you, and we're praying we can do this all together. Thank you and God bless.